trying to win anything is a waste of time. We should just push the revolution button. Push it then, bitch! Why aren't you pushing it? Did you catch this Larry Krasner statement?
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. That's what they are. In a country of 350 million, we outnumber them. If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, we will find your identities. We will find you. We will achieve justice. And
No, Mike, you don't understand. It would be better if the district attorney of Philadelphia was a fucking Nazi right-wing Zionist, corporate Democrat that was happy to cooperate with Trump. That would be better. See, that would be better for the left. That would be better, guys. You're doing reformism right now. Now, the thing is, I could tell someone is not very intelligent if they say reform or revolution as if there is an either or. I understand that they have unfortunately, they have a small brain and it may be terminal. And they are processes that exist at the same time. It isn't some sort of like spectrum where you click this button or this button. You have people trying to argue for reform, which creates political activity, that creates discourse, which creates class consciousness through organizing and the application of thought to a certain context. And then you have the frustration of reform, which leads to the growth of revolutionary activity, because people see that the system, the predictions of Marx that we live and the descriptions of capitalism of Marx, they see that applying in their everyday life. They see how the system is rigged. They see how they cannot achieve reforms. Reforms are frustrated through extrajudicial means, through coercive means, and that helps people to buy into the idea of revolution more. It is not an either or. They're both necessary. Now, a lot of Maoists and ultra-leftists are very unhappy when you say that history is a process and that history goes through various stages of development and it's unpredictable, and sometimes we can skip over things and rush ahead and sometimes we can't. They hate that. They call that stagism or whatever. They think you could just push the communism button. If we don't have communism right now, it's because we're not pushing the communism button hard enough.
The kind of fundamental change that socialists and communists and Marxists and anarchists of many stripes have endorsed for a long time. So the question is, are you a reformist or are you a revolutionary? That issue has divided people terribly. The people who are impatient and want to make a revolution don't want to be sidetracked by all these little things. They see that the basic problem is the system. On the other hand, people have a hard time getting their head around the notion, change a system. The system is very complicated. The system has many parts. You don't know quite where to start. Not everybody sees the system the same way. A particular reform is kind of more definable and focused. So it becomes a practical question and not just a theoretical one. The resolution most have come to, not all, not by a long shot, but the resolution most have come to is that this debate is more abstract than helpful. In other words, the left movements for socialism have always ended up doing both things to varying degrees. If the conditions allow you to make a frontal attack on the system, you go for it. And if the conditions don't allow you, you don't just throw in the towel and, well, we can't make a revolution, so why, we go to the beach? No, you go and you start pushing on those things that people will work with you, where you can get masses of people, and you hope, Marx's idea and the idea of many Marxists since, you hope that the struggles for reform become schools in which those who get caught up in the struggle learn in a very concrete way why the reform isn't enough. You struggle real hard and you have a minimum wage. And then you have one. And then how much has changed? Okay.
The important thing, and I want to point something out. When you have that minimum wage, your life gets better than it was before the minimum wage. The only thing that's happened is your life is now relatively better than it was before, and you also recognize that you can win by fighting and organizing, and then you realize it isn't enough and you want more. That's the process that I'm talking about.
Okay. And then you discover also that if it's capitalism and you get a reform and you don't change the system, you discover pretty quick that capitalism fights you to prevent you from getting the reform. And if they lose and you get the reform, they don't stop fighting. They try to take it away. And because you've left them in a position of power, they own the enterprises, they grab the wealth, you leave them with the very means to undo the reforms you will have struggled so hard to win. So that the idea, the hope is that the struggle for the reform produces the revolutionary, who recognizes after a while that the revolution is the only way to make those reforms stick, to make them permanent, to not work so hard to get something and then see it all undone. In the 1930s, the United States got the New Deal. In the 50 years since then, it was taken back. Most of it's gone. You can't live on Social Security. The whole idea of Social Security was you could live on it. You can't possibly. I mean, there may be some people in the room that are doing it, but they're consuming a lot of cat food. You can't. You can't. The minimum wage has been abused. When was the last time they raised it? 1997 or something like that. I mean, it's just disgusting. The inflation erodes it all the time. They keep it up. It's just
Reform
they can take
is
it away.
anti-revolutionary. Are you okay? Do you need me to write it down for you? Did you not hear what he just said? Do you need me to write it down for you? What people do is they see the left didn't win in one straight upward arc, and therefore they say, oh, well, trying to win anything is a waste of time. We should just push the revolution button. Push it then, bitch! Why aren't you pushing it? Push the button! Why are you asking me to push it? Why are you asking AOC to push it? Push the fucking button! Why do you need me to push it? Who's speaking now? This is Professor Richard Wolff.
You don't change
One of the few actual Marxist professors that exists. You know how every Republican is like every professor at college is a Marxist. He's one of the few that actually exist.
System you create it. It's like having a war, and at the end of country A defeats country B. What does country A do? Does it leave in the hands of country B all the tanks, all the bullets, all the guns? Don't do that. Those people are mad that they lost. They're going to use that and fight another day. So you better do some more so that doesn't happen. Disarm them or something. Reformers discover that if they don't change the system, look, that's America. In the 1930s, capitalism tottered. The people who confronted capitalism in the 1930s, the communists, the socialists, and the unions, they talked about revolution, and they meant it. Remember, the communists, that was only a few years after what happened in Russia. They had a concrete example of what they could have done, and they thought about doing that here. But Roosevelt was a very clever leader, and he came back to them, and he said, you know what, I'm going to give you a lot of the things you want, the reforms you're demanding. But the condition is, I don't want to hear about revolution anymore. You got to stop that talk. That's got to stop. You got to turn on those communists and socialists in your rank and stop talking about.
I don't think that's fair. That's not really true about FDR. I mean, there was some of that. That's not really true about FDR. It's very true about Truman and the Democratic Party in general, especially after FDR's death. That's part of why Stalin got caught slow-footed, because he thought that he was going to be able to have a mutual coexistence with America after World War II. Because Stalin had spent so much time with FDR and they got along so well, the Soviets thought that after World War II, there would be mutual coexistence. And then after FDR died, Truman enacted basically, I would call it Nazi, anti-communist into positions of power.
About it.
I disagree
And
with that.
they agreed. There were always a few who didn't, but the bulk of the communists and socialists agreed. And Roosevelt was good for his word. He gave them Social Security, he gave them unemployment, he gave them a minimum wage, and he gave them 15 million government jobs. It was amazing what he did. But they got the reforms. They didn't get the revolution. Who knows if they could have, but they didn't. They didn't make that effort. And here we are, 70 years later, discovering that 2/3 of what they got in the 1930s, they've lost. That's why the revolutionary cry today is another New Deal, a green one. I'm in favor of it. And nothing, I love AOC, all of that.
Okay, here, let me just say this. I agree with Professor Wolf completely, by the way. I completely agree with him. It is a problem. See, the problem is, of course, that winning begets winning. And what happened with FDR, you had an event called World War II. And the human race was on the verge of falling to fascism. So there was a bit of what we call a popular front against fascism. And that distracted us. And then it created the militarization necessary to contain socialism. And the reason that's been the problem is the United States of America militarized and copied a lot of the Gestapo's methods to do anti-communism. So we have to dismantle that if we're going to be able to push forward with socialism.
I do. But you have to face what this is. So the reform and revolution, I think Marx would have been one of those to say, you fight for what can be moved forward for the mass of the working people. Because it's never just what you're fighting for. It's the process of the fighting that teaches many lessons. The benefits of organization, the benefits of unity of different groups, the tactics and strategy needed to overcome all of our differences so that we can act in a solidary way. All of those lessons.
Solidaridistic is how you say that, Professor Wolf. Solidaridistic. It's very hard to say, I know, but it's not solidary way, it's solidaridistic.
Are profound, and they can be learned even if the thing you're struggling for isn't what
I got to correct someone's pronunciation, chat.
Wish it would be. The trick of good
U.S. telling allies to prepare for war on Iran.